Pulsex and Pulsechain. These two projects are going to be coming out hopefully this year at some point. But what if there was a way for us to track the interest and activity around these? Right? You can go to Twitter, you can kind of get a little tidbit of a gauge, but that's only very microscopic. What if we could take a macro view? Well, we can. That's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to take a look at the website traffic of Pulsechain and Pulsex to see which one is more interesting, which one is growing over time. Are they both growing over time? Is there a divergence in that? As well as what are people searching for on the two largest search engines in the world? That's going to show us the interest around these. Because think about your own behavior for a moment. When do you go to a website? Only when you're super fucking interested in what the website has to offer to get some type of resource or utility out of there. When do you go to Google to search for something? When you personally have an interest in that. So these are macro indicators of what is going on. And we're going to take a look at all of these. And we're also going to contrast it slightly with the same thing we did about a week ago to see if there's any changes. So, with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Anybody who wants to support the channel, you can check out some links down below. But most importantly, it's your time, so thank you for being here. This is Alexa, an Amazon company. They rank websites based upon estimated traffic, bounce rate, how long somebody stays on the site in terms of page views and whatnot, and a couple other factors, and then they rank these. Remember, there's millions and millions and millions of websites out there. Pulsechain.com ranks globally at 28,500th. Pretty fucking high, right? But we do see here, right around the beginning of March, or well, actually in the last 10 days, today's the 20th. Right, so just in the last 10 days or so, we see it tapering down. There's less people who are actually searching for and going to their website. In their ranking in the United States, 38,000. So globally, they're more popular than they are within the United States. Interesting. And we get to see that it's been growing over time, but kind of got to like a saturation or peak point, right? You know, not completely, but it kept going up until right around 28,000, and that was its peak, and then it flattened out, and then it's starting to decline. So I'm going to keep track of this as we go towards launch, probably once a week. So if you want to catch those videos when they come out, you should probably fucking subscribe. Now, this is Pulsex, right? So let's go take a look at Pulsex. Pulsex has a completely different graph. Remember, this one's like a little bumpy, right? Pulsex is just continually looking like, I mean, it's not growing much, but it is growing. And it's globally ranked 17,361st versus 28. So it's not twice as popular, but it's substantially more popular. 12,000 spots more popular globally. And then in the United States, it's ranked 29,000 versus 38,000, right? So about 10,000 spots there, 9,000 spots there. In the United States more popular. And another thing we want to take a look at here is the trend that we were talking about, right? So here, whenever I put it there, it kind of like covers up what we're trying to look at, so I won't. But the last 10 days, you get to see the slope of the line. Well, actually, since basically the beginning of March, right around this period here, right, where you had that little bit of a bump, kind of flattened out for the next 10 days. And then over the next 10 days, right, because today's the 20th, so at the very beginning of March, it was like flat for about 10 days. Not gaining in popularity, not losing in popularity. And then over just the last 10 days, it's started to decrease in popularity. Let's take a look at Pulsex. So this is the ranking, 17,951st on March 1st. And it is currently 17,361st. So Pulsex has increased in popularity by 600 spots globally in the last 20 days, roughly. Pulsechain has gone from 28,000, almost even, 28,008 to 28,548. So they've lost 500 spots, 540 spots, where Pulsex has gained 600. So there's a delta there of over 1,000 in terms of how much they've gained. Interesting. We don't have the same data for specific countries, just aggregated on a global level. But in the United States, again, we have 29,000 and 38,000. So that's kind of interesting to see what's going on. But remember, Pulsechain was launched, or the sacrifice was a year ago almost, right? 8 months ago, 10 months ago. So that could be why, right? Where Pulsechain sacrifice ended, 3 weeks ago. So there could be some extra energy still behind that is pushing that forward, right? That could be driving that. But let's take a look at the two largest search engines in the world. This is Pulsechain and Pulsex. So we have here, the blue line is Pulsechain and the red line is Pulsex. And you can tell here, this is when launch was for the sacrifice phase for Pulsex. But, well, let's first look at this. Okay, so this is worldwide. We're looking at search volume worldwide on YouTube. This is YouTube, the second largest search engine, right? Over the last 12 months, and we have YouTube search right here. Now you know what you're looking at. We see that there is, this data also confirms this, right? On YouTube, Pulsex is more popular. More people are looking for it. Now, the interesting thing here, though, is that there's been, several weeks, let's see, since the 20th of February, looks like there's been a decline in Pulsex search interest on YouTube. And during that same period of time, there was Pulsechain only saw 1 week of declined search interest, right? So the stability of Pulsechain is much greater. You can see the volatility around Pulsex, right? It spikes up and down, right? Even though it's only been, 4 months or something like that, or 3 months or something like that. When we go to, so we get to see, here it's Pulsex is more popular. Now we're looking at worldwide, 12 months on Google. This is search volume for Google. And now we see a different interesting story. So this is interesting here. Look at this. So this also confirms what is going on. I'm going to show you the data that I did from about a week ago, and we'll take a look at this because this is very interesting. On the web, we see that searches for Pulsex have dropped, right? So I don't know, does it say when the sacrifice phase ended? On here, it might say when that was. You can surely let me know down below in the comment section. Let's see. I'm just going to search for end. Not sure when it ends. Okay, but anyways, maybe this correlates with the end date. Oh yes, it was February 25th. Awesome. Okay, so this is fascinating. Look at this. So this tells us the exact story of what's going on. That's why I love this macro data, because then you get to see what is actually going on and related to your life. Pulsex's sacrifice phase was from whenever until the 25th of February. What do we see here? This is the week of the 20th of February to the 26th of February. After that, we've seen a drop-off in search interest. Interesting. And now, at least over the last 2 weeks, they've been about the same, with Pulsechain pulling ahead slightly. Remember, Pulse Chain, if we go back to launch of Pulsex, we saw a pop here. We see an increase in interest. This is on Google. People who are searching for this globally. A pop here of that. Actually, let's take a look at the United States after this. But we see a pop of interest here. But since that pop of interest with Pulse Chain, it's been declining, week over week, or just flat week over week for a while, until this past week here, where Pulsex has dropped below Pulse Chain. Fascinating, right? Because when we look at this data, right, it's different. Now, let's take a look at the data from a week ago, because this also shows this. So this is the last time I took a look at this data and I tracked it. And the world thing we get to see, right, because we get to see this over the last 90 days. But because I tracked the ranking in the United States, that's where the fascinating tidbit is here. Look at the drop here. So this is the 15th versus today for Pulse Chain. Went from 35,000 to 38,000. So it's lost 2,700 spots, right? 2,700 spots in terms of the United States interest in the site. And remember, we get to see this slightly, right? It's continued to drop here. Look at Pulsex. There's been a massive decrease in interest in terms of the ranking. So this data here that I'm talking about is literally this data here. It's just taking their global ranking and taking their ranking in the United States and putting into a fucking spreadsheet. Now, in the world, right, we get to see that they've dropped or basically stay the same with Pulsex and basically stay the same or gained with Pulse Chain, right? So these will be kind of interesting to see what happens and what plays out over the next couple of weeks. But what is fascinating is the stunning drop of interest on the United States ranking for Pulsex. A gigantic drop here. What is that, 14,000 almost, 13,000 and change spots that have dropped versus 3,000 over here, 2,700. Big difference. So this will be interesting. Still, Pulsex is more popular in the United States than Pulse Chain's website. But if we see another week of massive drop-off in traffic between here and here, that'll be interesting to see what's going on. Now, do we know this is going to predict the results in terms of price performance? No, we don't. But it did similar analysis for the 2012 and 2016 elections, and it did predict them for those. And then when there's cheating and stuff, it doesn't work, right? Like 2020. Because it wasn't accurate if you're going to cheat in the results. But this is fascinating. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are down below in the comment section. And I do also have a social ranking that we take a look at. This is from the 17th, but we'll cover that in another video. If you want to see the details of what this is, you can check that out on the channel between Pulsex and Pulse Chain using social indicators, right? Because this is one way of looking at macro data. And then looking at Telegram and Twitter and YouTube views and the people who are creating the content on YouTube is another way to take a look at the data to try to understand the growth rate and popularity of these things. Now, if you want to support the channel, you can check out the links down below. If you have any ideas or thoughts, you can also leave those down below or jump over to Twitter. There's also a link below for Twitter. I have another YouTube where I cover a lot more of the fringe of the fitness industry, biohacking, peptides, SARMs, gear. When I say gear for people who are not into fitness, that's steroids and stuff like that. Not as much of the steroids, more so peptides and whatnot, all on that channel. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, the same idea of DeFi crypto where you're on the fringe of society because most people don't have any idea what you're talking about. That's what I cover in the other channel from a fitness perspective. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.